So you're teaching a class and you're reading off the slides. You look at the class and they're looking like this. Let's talk about it. I'm Jay Bryan. I'm a learner engagement expert. And I want to talk to you about the C over C formula, the C over C formula. And I'm going to talk about what that means. But I remember when I first started facilitating classes, trainings, and I didn't really know how to necessarily facilitate as opposed to read the information off or regurgitate information. I didn't understand that. So because I was new to it, I would read slides word for word as they were, and it would bore my classes to death. My learners would look like, man, when is this dude going to be quiet? I found over time, what I discovered was that there's actually a formula to counteracting that, to keeping the learners engaged as you're facilitating the information. That formula is the C over C formula. C over C. Connection over content. Connection over content, man. So when it comes to learner engagement, while content is important, the slides, the e-learnings, the fonts, all those things, the tools, the techniques that you use, so from your learner engagement toolkit, all of that is important. But I would say that's 20% of the battle. The 80% is connecting or having a connection with the learner. And that can be a connection with the actual person that's teaching the class, or it could be a connection with the material in the way that you facilitate it. Maybe you use some kind of example that they can actually personally relate to. I gave an example a couple of videos back about using a discussion about tea, like tea that you drink, to talk about how to navigate a system. That was big because our learners, or my learners and I, had just discussed that, and then I incorporated it into what I was teaching. So when it comes to using this principle, this formula, connection over content, in order to get 100% or at least 80% of your learner engagement, there are three things you want to remember. Number one, you want to remember that the material has to be relevant to the learner. It has to be relevant to the learner. That's extremely important. If it's not relevant to them, they're going to check out. Second thing, you want to make a connection, typically using some type of metaphor, if you can, or if you know a direct connection between the material and the learner. That's going to create the most engagement. Then the third thing that you want to think about in order to implement this formula is that you want to use some type of what I call a memory anchor. What are the order of operations for math? PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, PEM, division, addition, subtraction. Why do I remember that all these years later? I use some type of memory anchor. Figure out a memory anchor to help connect that material to the learner. You can literally make one up, whatever works for you and whatever will connect that material and help it to stay in their mind. That is how you implement the connection over content formula. Focus on the connection, which is 80% of the formula. And I promise you, 80% of learner engagement is connection. I promise you, you will see results. After I started implementing these things in my teaching, I learned that I found that my learners were extremely engaged. They were paying attention more, and they even left me good reviews as a trainer, which then helps translate to me making more money in my job. So this works. I know it works from personal experience. So if you would like for me to come in, work with your team, your organization, talking about not only this, but any aspect of corporate training that helps to improve your learners' engagement or improve your corporate training or your team's corporate training, their results that they're getting, please reach out to info@jbryanspeaks.com. Again, that's info@jbryanspeaks.com. Again, we talked about the connection over content formula. Always remember that, keep that in mind. And with that, I'm Jay Bryan, Learner Engagement Specialist. Y'all have a great one. Peace.